everyone, and welcome back to Crafter's Grove. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to make these little pouches to make your own advent calendar. So each pouch is numbered with the day in December, and then the inside also has a different color fabric. So each time you reveal the advent calendar bag, you flip it inside out, and that helps you keep track of how many days are left until Christmas. So the more white on the tree, the more time until Christmas. I have a tree stand here that I use to hang the bags on, but you could also put them on your own Christmas tree or even on a board with nails. There's plenty of possibilities for hanging up these advent calendar bags. So as I mentioned, and as you can see here, these bags really consist of two bags, one inside the other. So in order to get this effect, make sure you use two different types of material. And the bags measure at about 3¼ inches. And then we have to account also for this overhang here where the ribbon goes in, plus the seam. So we're going to do 3¾ inches for each side of the two bags. So essentially you need two pieces of fabric measuring 3¾ inches by 7½ inches long. I currently only have one type of fabric, so both of my pieces are going to be the same color. Now what I'm doing is I'm marking off with chalk the measurements that I need for these pieces of fabric, and this is really going to help to create a straight line and to ensure that the final pieces are to the exact measurement. So here I'm marking out one piece of fabric, and then I'm going to do the second piece right beside it. Okay, so once your fabric's all laid out and you're ready with your measurements, it's time to cut your pieces out. So at this point, you should have two pieces of fabric measuring 3¾ inches by 7½ inches. So first thing, you want to sew up those edges just to secure them, and then afterwards we're going to be sewing some seams. So I've just done a straight stitch here, just a small distance away from the edge, just to help protect that edge from coming apart over time. So repeat this for all four sides of your fabric, and then repeat it for the second piece of fabric as well. Once you've stitched up all the edges, it's a good time to remove all the loose threads, as these do tend to get in the way as you're doing the next stages of the project. For the next step, you really need to know what is the good side of the fabric and what's the bad side, meaning what side do you want facing out when the project is done. So the outward side, or the finished side of the fabric, should be facing one another right now, and the bad side should be what's outside right now. So you want to line up the fabric together, and then you're going to sew up the ends as I'm doing here, so sewing together the short ends of the fabric. To do this part of the project, you could have the two pieces of fabric pinned together. If you haven't done this before sewing the second edge, just make sure you realign the pieces of fabric so that they are fitting exactly correct. After trimming the excess thread, you want to turn the pieces of fabric to line up the seams you just made. Now you can start to see the two pouches forming. Next, we're going to create a hem right in the hole where the two bags can be flipped right side out and where we're going to be sewing the little space for the ribbon to be threaded through. So this hem needs to run about 1¼ inch on either end of the seam that we created, only on the one side of the two bags. So what we're going to do is just fold over part of the material and sew that bit. So I'm marking off the 1¼ length so it's easy to know where to sew, and then making a small hem as you see here. Before you start sewing, make sure there's no other fabric underneath so you don't accidentally sew the two pieces together, as we do need this space to remain open in this position. Once you've done the one side, repeat the same steps for the other side as well. Once you've sewed the second side, it's a good idea to line them up and make sure they're looking symmetrical. If not, you can take out the thread and start over again at this point. Next, you want to cut all the loose threads again before we start sewing up the remaining edges. At this point, it is a good idea to pin the two edges together, as we will be doing a lot of sewing, and you want to make sure the seams meet up as close as possible. Another thing you want to be mindful of is that this flap of fabric stays in line on both sides of the bags, both front and back. So the pinning really helps to keep you mindful of this as well. The first seam you want to sew is continuation from the hem that you did earlier for the hole in the two bags. So lining up with the original hem and then just sewing the two seams together to enclose that part of the bag. And next repeat that same step, sewing up the other remaining edge on the other side of that hole. Next, you want to sew up the entire edge of the opposite side. This closes the two bags together, except for the little hole that will allow you to reverse them. Once you've cut all your loose threads, it's time to flip the bags right side out. So you're going to do this by pushing the bags through the hole until they're completely reversed and all you see is the finished edges rather than the cut rough hems. I also use the end of a small paintbrush just to fully reverse those corners as well. So next we're going to flip one bag inside the other to make it look like one bag. And now we're going to sew the little channel where we're going to feed the ribbon through. So in order to do this, we're going to sew a straight seam about 1/2 inch from the top of this bag. So you want to make sure that there's nothing underneath the spot where you're going to sew the bag, and then you're just going to sew a continuous circle until you get to the other edge of the opening. Now your bag is nearly finished. Don't forget to cut those loose threads. And next we're going to pick out a ribbon to thread through the bag. So pick out your ribbon and then you want to grab a safety pin. Then you're going to tie the ribbon to the safety pin, making sure to tie a knot that's easy to undo. So to do this kind of knot, you want to pull the ribbon through the safety pin and then twist around as though you're about to tie a knot. Instead of pulling the entire end of the ribbon through, you're going to form a loop on one end, like 1/2 of a bow. Next, you're going to push the safety pin through that channel you created at the top of the bag, slowly feeding it through by pushing the safety pin, gathering the fabric, and continuing to push until it makes it all the way through the other end. To determine the length of ribbon, you want to measure the width of the bag, multiply that by 2, and add about 1 inch to allow for a knot to be tied at the end. So here our bag is about 3 inches wide, times 2, that's 6, add another inch, and that's 7 inches of ribbon that you want. Cut your ribbon to size, and then if you burn the end, that just helps secure the ribbon and stops it from fraying. Next, secure the two pieces of ribbon by tying them together into a simple knot, as close to their ends as you can. Now all that's left to do is decorate. So you can see on the original advent calendar on the white bag I did the numbers on both sides of the bag so that you can easily find it no matter what way the bag is turned using these types of markers, fabric markers, Sharpies. Also, if both your pieces of fabric are the same color, what you could do on the other side or the other bag is you can draw some special symbols or some different drawings so that each bag is unique. And that way, when you turn the bag inside out to mark that the day is done, you'll have a different surprise every day or every few days, depending on how many different designs you do. Of course, if you're making an advent calendar, make sure to make 24 bags or 25 bags total, depending whether you want one bag to open on Christmas. And then you pick your place to hang the bags and you're done. I hope you enjoyed this craft, and as you can see, my advent calendar is already done, so I have another plan in place for my little bag here. If you're interested in finding out what I'm going to do with my bag, stay tuned, press the subscribe button, and in 2 weeks I'll be releasing that video. Thanks for watching! See you next time. Bye! And that helps you keep track of how many days left are in September, how many days left in December,